Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Madhava Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Yashoda Nandana Jaya Vraja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Jaya Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrachakacharya Stotra Sata Shri Shrimatidana Goswami's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 17, entitled The Descent of River Ganges, and text number 21. Yam ahurasya stiti chanma samyamam. Yam ahurasya stiti janma samyamam. Tribhir vihinam yamanantam rishaya. Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya. Na veda siddhartam ivakvachit sthitam. Na veda siddhartam ivakvachit sthitam. Bhumandalam murda sahasradhamasu. Bhumandalam murda sahasradharmasu. Yamahurasya stitijanya samyamam. Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya. Na veda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam. Bhumandalam murda sahasradhamasu. Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Veda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Bhumandalam murdha sahasradhamasu.
Bhumandalam murda sahasramasu. Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Tribhir-vihinam yam anantam rishaya.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Veda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Bhumandalam murda sahasradhamasu.
Bhumandalam murda sahasramasu.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Bhumandalam murdam sahasradhamasu.
Bhumandalam murda sahasradhamasu.
Matajis.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Tribhir-vihinam yam anantam rishya.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Bhumandalam murta sahasradhamasu.
Bhumandalam murta sahasradhamasu.
Yamahurasya Siti Janma Samayamam.
Yamahurasya stiti janma samyamam.
Tribhir-vihinam yam amantam rasayaha.
Tribhir-vihinam yamanantam rishaya.
Naveda siddhartam iva kivaki siddhartam.
Naveda siddhartam iva kvachit sthitam.
Bhumandalam murda sahasara damasya.
Bhumandalam murda sahasradhamasu.
Thank you very much. Word by word translation. Yam, whom, ahuhu, they said, asya, of the material world, stiti, the maintenance, janma, creation, sangyamam, annihilation. Tribhihi, these three. Vihinam, without. Yam, which. Anantam, unlimited. Rishayaha, all the great sages. Na, not. Veda, feels. Siddhartam, a mustard seed. Iva, like. Kvachit, where. Stitam, situated. Bhumandalam, the universe. Murdha sahasra dhamasu, on the hundreds and thousands of hoods of the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Lord Shiva continued, all the great sages accept the Lord as the source of creation, maintenance, and destruction, although He actually has nothing to do with these activities. Therefore, the Lord is called unlimited. Although the Lord in His incarnation as Shesha holds all the universes on His hoods, each universe feels no heavier than a mustard seed to Him. Therefore, what person desiring perfection will not worship the Lord? Purport. The incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Shesha or Ananta, has unlimited strength, fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation. As described in this verse, Ananta's strength is so great that the innumerable universes rest on his hoods. He has the bodily features of a snake with thousands of hoods, and since his strength is unlimited, all the universes resting on his hoods feel no heavier than mustard seeds. We can just imagine how insignificant a mustard seed is on the hood of a serpent. In this connection, the reader is referred to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, verses 117 to 125. There it is stated that Lord Vishnu's incarnation as the serpentine Ananta Shesh Nag supports all the universes on his hoods. By our calculation, a universe may be very, very heavy, but because the Lord is Ananta, unlimited, He feels the weight to be no heavier than a mustard seed. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Pada Kamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Shivaram Swami Niti Namine. Hare Krishna, the devotees. Thank you very much for coming to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. I have to say I didn't find the time to prepare, so it will be a lot of reading. I hope you're okay with that. But it's always auspicious to hear from the Shastras directly. Anyway, better than most of what I will have to say. So we're still in this description of Lord Shiva. Actually, he's praying to Lord Shankarshan. I don't know, I wasn't here last week. Did you speak a lot about Shankarshan? Did you hear already all the stories? Otherwise, anyway, we can tell them again, since many of us also were maybe not here, or it was already some time ago. First of all, Srila Prabhupada, he's here referring to the Chaitanya Charita Amrit, the nectar of the pastimes and characteristics of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a book written by Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And here in this 5th chapter, which is entitled The Glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram, Kaviraj Goswami writes, 117. That same Lord Vishnu, in the form of Lord Shesha, holds the planets upon his head, although he does not know where they are, for he cannot feel their existence upon his heads. So that's what we heard before, that Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport that Sheshanaga, this incarnation of Krishna, actually of Lord Balaram, he holds on his head, or his many heads actually, the whole universe. Not only one, but all the universes like that. And because he is so powerful, actually unlimitedly powerful, that's what the word means, Ananta. Anta means end, like we have in Bhakti Vedanta. What does it mean, Bhakti Vedanta?
Vedanta.
3 words, Bhakti Vedanta, so?
Connection, word. Word, connection, bhakti. Veda means field, you said? Or knowledge?
Yeah, actually here it was saying Veda means fields. It's interesting, yeah. There was in what context? Naveda. Yeah, he feels or he does not know. Naveda, he doesn't know that these universes are so heavy. So, but generally Veda means knowledge, yeah, to know. And Anta means the end. So Bhakti Vedanta. One translation can be, he who understands Bhakti to be the end goal of all the Vedas. Right? But also it can mean the Vedanta is a certain text that compiles all the conclusions of the Upanishads, and so it can refer to that specific text, and it can then mean that he who understands the goal of Vedanta, of this philosophy, to be Bhakti. Very similar in meaning, but there was once this beautiful interaction where they also asked, what is the meaning? Why can the Advaitins not understand the Vedanta? I think that was the question. And then the devotees were trying to give answers to Srila Prabhupada, And they said different things. But then one devotee came up with a very beautiful answer. And all the others were envious that they didn't think about this. Because he said, because they don't have Bhakti Vedanta. They don't have the Bhakti Vedanta Swami, They cannot understand the real who is Krishna because they don't have the Bhakti Vedanta. They don't have Srila Prabhupada, but they also don't have the Bhakti scriptures or the Bhakti understanding of Vedanta. So anyway, in this way, Anta means end, but Ananta means unlimited. that which has no end. So because he is unlimited, Lord Anantashesh is unlimited, he can support all the universes like mustard seeds on his head. Like very tiny. Even on our head, right? If you put a mustard seed, we will not feel it. So what to speak of Anantashesh? He's huge. So just the universe is like nothing to him. And then even all the universes are like nothing to him. And then text 118, Kaviraj Goswami writes, his thousands of extended hoods are adorned with dazzling jewels, surpassing the sun. So not only does he have many beautiful hoods, like heads, but he also has he has the jewel on them, so he looks very, very beautiful. And it's so bright, it's surpassing the sun. So it's interesting that if you think about it, like there's a sun in our universe, but then below our universe there's this jewel, all the jewels of Anantashesh, and they must be super, super bright. Then in text 119, Kaviraj Goswami says, the universe, which measures 500 million yochans in diameter, rests on one of his hoods like a mustard seed. So again, this point is made. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, the Lord of Shvetadvip expands himself as Shesha Naga, who sustains all the planets upon his innumerable hoods. These huge global spheres are compared to grains on a mustard resting on the spiritual hoods of Shesha Naga. The scientist's law of gravity is a partial explanation of Lord Shankarshan's energy. The name Shankarshan has an etymological relationship to the idea of gravity. And then he goes, actually Prabhupada quotes this verse here that we just read. And this is an interesting point also. So Anantashesh, basically he's a expansion of Lord Shankarshan. And Sankarshan literally means, if you translate it, I mean that's my own speculation, but also Prabhupada mentions here there's an etymological relationship between gravity, which is the law of attraction, basically, right? That certain pulls work on matter. And Sankarshan means the same thing, if you translate it into English. Karshan, that's the same that we have in Krishna, comes from the root krish, means to attract, right? So Karshan is that which attracts, and san means like completely. So it's interesting that Prabhupada, many a time he would make this point that the scientists, they don't have actually an idea what is gravity, right? They just call it gravity, and that's the solution. Same thing like with intuition. They just say this is the intuition, for example, of an animal that, the butterfly, there's this example of butterflies in Mexico and North America. So there's a very tiny butterfly, and they live like in the north of America, like on the border to Canada. And when they mate, they fly all the way down to Mexico, which is like thousands of kilometers. So this tiny, tiny little butterfly flies all the way there and to a specific point where they then breed, and then after fly back to all the way to the north. So, the scientists, they cannot explain how do they find their way? How can they get there? It's so far away. How do they even know how to get there? What to speak, having the power also to get there? And then they just say, yeah, it's the intuition. It's the, what's the word for animals? Their instinct. Yes, instinct. So they have the instinct to go there. But of course, Prabhupada and the Vedas, they explain this is not intuition or instinct. Yeah, instinct is actually the word, not intuition. But it's Paramatma. It's the super soul that guides every living entity according to what they should do. And in this way, the scientists, they just pass, some word on something, and they say, now we understand it. And same with gravity. And yesterday, I happened to bump into Alexei Prabhu, which was a blessing, because I said I didn't have the time to prepare, and so Krishna made the arrangement that I could speak with him a little bit about this topic, because he's a physicist by background, right? And we discussed a little bit about this topic. We didn't have too much time, but it was nice because he also made the same point that it still bewilders the scientists very much what gravity is. Since Newton came up with his relativity theory back in the 1900, what was that, 20s or something like that. So more than 100 years ago, they have not come closer to understand what is gravity. Basically, the problem is that it seems that, well, it's very complex. I'm not a physicist, so I cannot really describe it. But that the space that we see or perceive is not how it actually is, right? So that maybe you have seen this. It's like you can imagine there's a towel that is put between two things, fixed on this. And then if you put a bowl, like a heavy bowl, on the towel, it will fold like this, right? It will hang through. And that's basically how they say that space probably is. It's not just, one dimension like this, but it's three-dimensional. And because of this, actually, it makes curves. So space is not straight, but it curves. And due to that, they don't find any formula that they can put to describe how actually these things work, because it's just beyond them to come to a conclusion. And this is very much confusing, because also they have this theory of quantum physics, which is very popular nowadays, and which is like the main theory that can, Alexei described it, that it's like the theory that is most verified of all theories that they have in physics, is the one with the most scientific backup, that it actually works to describe reality. But this quantum physics basically also says that there's, for example, light. It acts both as wave, but also as particle. Usually, things are either a wave or a particle. But they found out that that's not the reality. If you go deeper into the subatomic structure, then you will find that actually it can be both at the same time. And with this, they can then explain to some degree reality better. But still, it remains very, very blurry, and especially it comes in clash with the theory of gravity that they have so far. So it's interesting, even so much, so many years that have gone by, decades that they spent in trying to explain this phenomenon, they never came to a real conclusion. And therefore, we see that actually what they try to find is Lord Shankarshan. They try to understand how Shankarshan is working in this material world, and they cannot, because he is Ananta. He is unlimited. And therefore, we cannot really understand, especially not by our sense perception. And that's what Prabhupada also says. And then, just to read this last verse here. Kaviraj Goswami says, that Ananta Shesh is the devotee incarnation of Godhead. He knows nothing but service to Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada comments, Srila Jiva Goswami in his Krishna Sandarbha has described Sheshanaga as follows. Sri Anantadev has thousands of faces and is fully independent. Always ready to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he waits upon him constantly. Sankarshan is the first expansion of Vasudev, and because he appears by his own will, he is called Svarat, fully independent. He is therefore infinite and transcendental to all limits of time and space. He himself appears as the thousand-headed Shesha. And then it is also described in the Skanda Purana that actually Sheshanaga, Ananta Sheshi comes in Ram Lila as Lakshman, and then in Krishna Lila as Lord Balaram. And now there was this story that Prabhupada doesn't quote here, which is interesting. I was thinking maybe it's not 100% bona fide, but it's from the Shastras, it's from the Vishnu Purana. So first of all, he says here that Sanatana Goswami says that Sankarshan of the second group of quadruple forms appears as Ram, taking with him Shesha, who bears the global spheres. There are two features of Shesha. One is the bearer of the globes, and the other is the bedstead servitor. The Shesha who bears the globes is a potent incarnation of Shankarshan, and therefore he is sometimes also called Shankarshan. The bedstead feature of Shesha always presents himself as an eternal servitor of the Lord. So Ananta Shesh is basically an expansion of Shankarshan. And Shankarshan therefore has two main roles that he plays. One is to be basically Vishnu himself, and the other is to be the bedstead of Vishnu. So he's both Vishnu and the resting place that he's lying on, which is interesting also to think about. So it's like Krishna and Balaram, right? Same thing, because so Balaram is the first expansion of Krishna, and then from Balaram come the others. And Balaram and Krishna, they cannot be separated in one sense. In Vrindavan, there's Krishna Balaram, and Krishna is leaning on Balaram, right? He's like with his arm on Krishna's shoulder. So then Prabhupada made this point, who is stronger? Who is actually more powerful, Krishna or Balaram? And the devotees were guessing, and mostly they were saying Krishna. And Prabhupada said, no, but then why does Krishna lean on Balaram? So Balaram is supporting Krishna actually, like this. So this is this inconceivable relationship and tattva of Krishna and Balaram. But Balaram, he is the source of all existence. Everything that is because of Balaram. And so in this way, he's also supporting Krishna when he comes in the incarnation as Mahavishnu to then set forth the creation. But there is the story of how Shesha comes into this world. So this is described in the Vishnu Purana. And it is said there that Lord Ananta was a son of Kashyapa Muni. Kashyapa Muni had many, many kids. And 1,000 of them were serpents also, Nagas. So it's interesting to hear that. But Ananta was the first, Ananta Shesh. And then also he had very famous siblings, namely Vasuki. Vasuki is the serpent that was used in churning of the milk ocean. And that is also adorning Lord Shiva. So he's a great Shiva Bhakta. And then another one was Iravati, and the fourth one was Takshak. You know where Takshaka is? What is he famous for? Yeah, for the story of Parikshit Maharaj. So that's how the Srimad Bhagavatam begins in the first canto, that Parikshit Maharaj, he gets cursed by this Brahmin son Shringi to die within 7 days by the bite of this Takshak. What is it? How is it called? Is a bird snake, something like this. Snake bird. Yeah, snake bird. So the point is that Ananta got born in this family that was actually very, very evil in many ways. That's how it's described. All his siblings, they were not of very good character. And that's why he got quite fried. He was not happy, and he left that family. And he went to perform severe austerities. He lived in different places. It's described in Gandhamadana, in Badarik Ashram, Gokarna, Pushkaras, and the Himalayas. And he performed very severe penances, so severe that his flesh, skin, and muscles dried up and merged with his frame, whatever his frame is in that sense. But then Lord Brahma was pleased with him, seeing this heavy tapasya that he performed, and asked him for a boon. And Shankarshan, or Ananta Shesh, he was praying that he will always be able to fix his mind on Krishna, and that his mind will never be disturbed, and he just can focus on performing tapasya. And Lord Brahma was happily granting that boon, and also gave him the service that he could go and hold up all the universes on his head. So this is what happened. This is the story of how Ananta became then the carrier of the universes. Confirmed. Yeah. Shri Jagannath Subhadra Devi ki jai. Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Shri Ashura Damodar ki jai. And so I was just meditating a little bit on this point of how inconceivable these descriptions often are for us. Now we're in the 5th canto, it will only get more inconceivable, I think. More and more. And at the same time how we are meant to study and really understand and dive into it. So the question, of course, arises, how can we understand these stories? And we were just reading this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and actually discussing last Sunday. The Prabhu spoke about this topic also. Who is crazy? Who is actually, how do we understand reality is the basic question that comes up. And in just before that class, 1 week ago, we read this verse where actually Lord Shiva also says that Aham vetmi shuko veti, vyaso veti na veti va, paktya bhagavatam grahyam na buddhya na chatikaya. So Lord Shiva said that I may know, Shukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, may know, and Vyasadeva may know or may not know Srimad Bhagavatam. On the whole, Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless Purana, can be learned only through devotional service, not by material intelligence, speculative methods, or imaginary commentaries. So it's interesting, yeah, that Lord Shiva, who we hear here, is praying to Lord Shankarshan and is really absorbed in the personality of Godhead, therefore. He says that I understand Bhagavatam, which is also quite interesting that he says about himself. Usually we know he's very, very humble, servant of Krishna, but here he's quite confident. And he says, Shukadev Goswami, he knows, or he says actually he may know. In the word it says he knows. But Vyasadeva, who is the main author of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shiva says, he may know or he may not know Srimad Bhagavatam. So, it's quite an interesting statement. And he says, on the whole, Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless Purana, can only be understood through devotional service. So, once I asked these questions to one devotee, so how do we understand this point? You know, that on the same kind of vein, that how do we understand the Bhagavatam? Can we not understand? That's one point. But the other one is, how do we understand that Vyasadeva might not know Srimad Bhagavatam? And I asked this devotee, and he was saying that, well, one explanation that he heard is that what is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is described in the 10th canto, is the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And so Vyasadeva, as we know, he's a literary incarnation of Krishna. He's an empowered jiva, but it is described that we don't really know what is his eternal position in the spiritual world. Whereas we know that Shiva, he's there as Gopishwar Mahadev. He's there at the rasa dance. He's the one who protects and grants entrance to the rasa dance. And so in that sense, he is a live visitor also of the whole Rasa Lila, and therefore the deepest essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Shukadev also, he is, in the spiritual world, who? The parrot of Radharani. So he is also there. It's interesting anyway that the birds in Braj, they have a special position because they can always be there, anytime. They can fly around and they come and see everything. And so it's also described, for example, I never really read the commentaries of the Acharyas, but Shiva Maharaj in his book Damodar Janani, the pastime of Damodar Lila, he often mentions how the birds were coming and discussing between each other. You know, when Mother Yashoda binds Krishna, nobody else is there but these birds. And they watch and they're very bewildered, and they discuss amongst each other very excitedly. What's happening? Krishna gets bound. Does she really hit him with the stick? No, she cannot do this. Like this, and they're there, first live visitors. And so in this way, these birds, they have a very special position in Vraj. And Shuka, being the parrot of Radharani, is therefore a very, very special bird. And thus he understands the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Shiva and Shukadev, they understand, but Vyasadeva, he may or he may not understand. But then Mahaprabhu, he gave us the understanding of how we can understand, and that's what we read in the last, what we heard in the last class, that if one becomes a madman like me, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he may also understand the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam by this process. So, but that's the only way how we can understand Srimad Bhagavatam is by becoming a madman. And I just wanted to use this as a little bridge between the two devotees that we're going to describe next, whose disappearance day it is today. On the disappearance or appearance day of great Vaishnavas, we should also speak a little bit about them. So I don't know much about them, but let's see what the internet has to say. One of them is Kashishwar Pandit, who is a god brother actually of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a disciple of Ishwarapuri and served Ishwarapuri intimately together with Govinda Prabhu also. Govinda Prabhu then, when Ishwarapuri left the world, he told Govinda and Kashishwar to go serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after they were the servants of Ishwarapuri, they became the personal servants of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They must be very special souls to get this kind of boon. And whereas Govinda, straight after the disappearance of Ishwarapuri Pad, went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kashishwar Pandit first, he went on a pilgrimage to all the holy places, and then afterwards came to the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore there's actually not so much description in the scriptures. He's mentioned in a few places, 2 or 3 verses, but not much more. His main service, Ishwarapuri's main service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was keeping the people away from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially when the Lord went to take darshan in Jagannath Puri. He was the bodyguard, He was making sure the crowds cannot touch him. Kashishwar Pandit, he was like taking care. He was the bulldozer in front. And then Govinda Prabhu, he came in the back with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, carrying Mahaprabhu's lota also. That's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but then also in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. And also it is described how he participated in some of the Leelas in Navadvip, which I don't know how that happened, but he was also at the Kirtans at Srivas Angan. And he was also bathing with the Lord in the Ganges. He was serving prasadam. And Vrindavan Das Thakur once says in Chaitanya Bhagavat also that Kashisha was one with the heart of Mahaprabhu. So he must be a very, very intimate devotee, and it's good to remember him today. And also, today is the disappearance day of Bhugarbha Goswami. And he was a dear friend of Lokanath Goswami, who we know as the spiritual master of Narottam Das Thakur, and of course a very, very exalted Vaishnava. And Bhugarbha Goswami and Lokanath Goswami, they lived together. And Narahari Chakravarti Thakur writes in Bhakti Ratnakar that Bhugarbha Goswami and Lokanath Goswami were world preachers. They were so close and affectionate to another that they were like one body. And so they were also seen as as principal Goswamis. There were the 6 Goswamis we know of, and then they were also counted among the Goswamis. In one song, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, he writes, "Oh Hari, why am I addicted to this abominable path of karma? I didn't worship Radha Krishna and Raj, even one iota, nor could I understand the position of spontaneous devotion, Raga Marg. Sarup Damodar, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta, Raghunath Das, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Bhugarba Goswami, Jiva Goswami and Lokanath Goswami. I never offered a drop of service to their lotus feet. How then shall I attain the goal of life?" So it's very beautiful how Narottam Das Thakur always gives us the proper understanding, what it means to become a madman, how to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. We can see how he's always in this lamentation. In the walking in the footsteps of the Goswamis, he brings out this mood of, we're just wasting our time, really. What are we doing to really attain Krishna Prem? Are we really actually hankering for it? Are we really doing the most we can? And if I'm honest with myself, then obviously not. Wasting so much time, and I'm not taking this serious as I should. And so on these days where we hear about these great Vaishnavas, that we can also go more into that during the day, into their songs and the descriptions, we can aspire to also become like them in terms of following the footsteps, in terms of being really, really eager to get the association of Krishna, his service, the service of his dear associates. And it's the same situation for us. We have all these exalted Vaishnavas on the planet, and we have them here in the temple also. How much are we actually eager and trying to serve them, like with our full heart, and that we really want to please them and really, understand that they're so dear to Krishna. And I mean, each of us, each of you who is here today is very special, because you're one of these dear devotees, because there's not so many if you look around in the city of Zurich and in the country of Switzerland. So few. So actually, this association that we have is so precious to really get closer to another and then to Krishna also. And again, in this mood of one has to become a madman of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is described in the Shat Goswami Ashtakam, which I tried to learn and still haven't, so I have to read it. But it's very beautiful. Maybe we can recite together, just the last two verses, if you go look it up, Shat Goswami Ashtakam. The last two verses, number 7 and 8. So this is a prayer by Srinivasacharya that describes who are the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, who are the main disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who were empowered to teach us, the followers of Mahaprabhu, what it means to be a Gaudiya Vaishnava, to practice Krishna consciousness as a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the last 2 verses, it is said, we can recite the Sanskrit. Radha kunda tate kalinda tanaya tire chavang shivate premon madhava shesha shesha dashaya grastau pramatau sada gayantau chakada harer gunavaram bhava vibhutau muda Vande Rupa Sanatanau Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalako. Srinivasacharya says, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who were sometimes on the bank of Radhakund Lake, or the shores of the Jamuna, and sometimes at Vangshivat. There they appear just like madmen, in the full ecstasy of love for Krishna, exhibiting different transcendental symptoms in their bodies, and they were merged in the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. He Radhe Vraja Devike Chalalite, He Nanda Sunokuta, Shri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale Kalindivane Kuta Goshanta Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedair Mahavihvalo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who were chanting very loudly everywhere in Vrindavan, shouting, Queen of Vrindavan, Radharani, O Lalita, O son of Nanda Maharaj, where are you all now? Are you just on the hill of Govardhan? Or are you under the trees of the bank, on the bank of the Yamuna? Where are you? These were their moods in executing Krishna consciousness. So here we can see how they were always eager to see and serve Krishna. And that's what we should also cultivate in our spiritual life. That's what Prabhupada was commenting when he said, to George Harrison, when he wrote this song, My Sweet Lord. Then Prabhupada said, it's a very nice song. Which is interesting. You think, it's like a pop song. But Prabhupada, he encouraged him, and also he understood how George Harrison was really, creating this longing in himself. And that's what we should also learn to do. And Prabhupada said, that's the mood of the Goswamis. Where is Krishna? Because George Harrison said, where I really want to see you, Lord. I really want to see you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord. And it goes on like this. Prabhupada said, this is bhava. This is the emotions that we should cultivate to really try to see. Not that we try to make Krishna our servant, I just want to see you, but in a mood of service, to always run after Krishna. And on these days of disappearance and appearance of the great Vaishnavas, it becomes so much more tangible also to hear about them and then understand how we should also try to practice Krishna consciousness. Yeah, so these were a few thoughts. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Questions? Okay.
Just the example that you mentioned with the butterflies. I think what also happens is it takes 3 generations for those
that's right. That's right.
to get back. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah, you're right. That's the detail that is actually really. So they on the way they already die, and then the next generation carries on the travel, and then they go back again. It's really inexplicable. Yeah. Thank you for adding. Okay. Hare Krishna. Gravity is nonsense. A lot of gravity exposed. Jaya.
Ну, конечно, такие моменты с бабочкой.
Конечно.
Просто вот это, Господь все вот эти делает условия для души, чтобы она курсы проходила. Допустим, она полетала бабочкой, она была в этом состоянии. Потом еще она где-то полетала. Чтобы она вот эти курсы где прошла, и уже больше никогда в мир материи не вернулась.
Lord makes like a study course for the soul, for different bodies and butterfly body. So you would never want to come again. He gets his lessons in different bodies.
И получается, что из 400 тысяч форм жизни, только 9
Only
цивилизованных тысяч.
only 9,000 is civilized forms of human life. Out of 9,000. Special. Yeah, I don't know about the title, you figure. Okay. I will tax my brain. Ask ChatGPT. Thank you.
already had a